We're here at 2013 D1 Nationals for Sky Magazine, presented by Spin Ultimate. I'm Jimmy Leppert.
I'm Jonas Cole.
I'm Coit Stevenson.
And I'm Kimutis.
Let's start with Pool A. What happened in Pool A today?
Today in Pool A, we saw everything go to seed. Dartmouth was up with a 2-0 record against Colorado and Oregon. Both of those teams performed this morning and was able to shut Dartmouth out. Oregon ended up taking the pool, going 4-0, and Colorado took second, 3-1. Dartmouth finished the day at 2-2, taking third and making a trip to the pre-quarters. In the 4-5 game, Georgia outplayed UW and took that game by a score of 15-13.
Coit, what about in Pool B?
In Pool B, we saw Wisconsin take on Harvard in a very fast-paced game in which both teams had great offense as well as high-powered defense. Wisconsin's handler D was especially shut down today, as well as both teams had great hucks for scores, both Harvard and Wisconsin hucking full field multiple times. Harvard ended up falling in that game to Wisconsin 13-11.
In Pool C, UCF closed out victory today in this pool. They've been playing great all tournament, and their last game against Ohio, they were resting their starters, preparing for tomorrow in the quarterfinals. Ohio did beat UCF, but also lost to UNC, and that loss guaranteed that Ohio would not make pre-quarters. Mitch Sion had another great day for Ohio, but the three guys on UNC, Nethercutt, Johnson, and Green, were spectacular, and they didn't let Ohio back into the game, and UNC was also able to advance onto pre-quarters. The other team from Pool C that advanced onto pre-quarters was UC Davis Dogs. The Dogs beat Luther to start the day, securing their pre-quarter spot instantly, and they were set out from the start to make the most of it.
Pool D had some fun games, but in the end the results were pretty much what you would expect. Starting off with Pitt and UNC Wilmington, it was pretty much a game of two halves. UNC Wilmington came out firing and Pitt seemed to lack intensity. Wilmington ended up taking half in a chippy game, but in the end Pitt showed why they're the returning champion. Wilmington only scored 1 point in the second half, and Pitt easily blew through them 15-9. Meanwhile, Illinois beat Arizona for the only upset of the day. Illinois, as the only qualifier from the Great Lakes region, came out with something to prove today. Their next game was against Texas, who came out and stomped them in the first half, but they actually battled back in the second. In the end, though, Texas really never lost control, ended up winning that game. Texas really had great pool play throughout the entire game. They played UNC Wilmington after that and never looked out of control. They have a star in Driscoll, and though he had a few drops, he played well whenever they needed him to, and they blew through Wilmington 15-11.
Starting in pre-quarters, we have the Wisconsin Hodags, the hometown team. All day long and all weekend long, they've had a real big crowd here, including today, the Wisconsin Badger coming out to help support the team. Early on, there were two calls about whether the disc was up or down that didn't go Wisconsin's way, and that led to an early UC Davis break, and UC Davis really never looked back. Wisconsin didn't have any defense all day. They had no way to answer Ben Hubbard and Eli Kearns, and those two went to town, especially Eli Kearns. He was all over the field, getting open at will, cutting no matter who Wisconsin put on him. And UC Davis as a whole for their offense had 2, maybe 3 turns all game long. I counted only 1 in the second half. That was very big for them. On offense, Wisconsin was pretty set at just hucking to camp, and UC Davis was pretty set at giving to them. But in the end, it was UC Davis coming on top of the hometown team, 15-11. It was a very surprising result. Not many people here are happy about the result, but UC Davis is very excited to take on Oregon Ego tomorrow morning in quarterfinals.
The Dogs' upset over the Wisconsin Hodags wasn't the only upset we saw in pre-quarters. In another matchup, we saw number 8 seed Colorado taking on number 9 overall seed Wilmington in an anticipated matchup. And right from the get-go, the story of the game seemed to be Wilmington's offense. It's driven by their handler movement between Luke Hancock and senior Mark Evans, who really run the show. Evans' breakthroughs throughout the game set the tone for the entire pace and showed that Wilmington was here to play and that they were fighting to stay in this tournament. In the second half, Wilmington's cutters started to make a name for themselves. Robert Good and Tommy Lamar came up huge, as did Zach Gosling, using his height of 6'8" to get over the Colorado defense. Wilmington took control of the game and ended up closing the door on Colorado's season 15-11.
As I said earlier, Texas Tough had some very good pool play, riding the strength of their chilly offense. They really worked the in-cut all day, unlike what we saw yesterday against Pittsburgh. But actually, that wasn't to continue. And yet another pre-quarter upset, Dartmouth beat Texas Tough. After Tough's impressive pool play, kind of expected to come out and play big against Dartmouth, but it wasn't to be. It was a very offensively minded game. There were only a few turns in the first half. But right before half, Dartmouth Pain Train snagged a break and took half 8-7. From there, it was just a matter of holding on. And though Texas tied the game at one point, they never led again. Dartmouth ended up winning 15-13.
Unlike the other 3 pre-quarter games, the game between the UNC Dark Side and the Harvard Red Line was not an upset. The UNC Dark Side took an early lead on a few early breaks and never looked back. UNC ended up taking the game 15-11. Harvard struggled with their injuries to key pieces and couldn't recover.
Now in the quarterfinal games tomorrow, we have Carleton Cut versus UNCW, UC Davis against Oregon Ego, Pitt versus UNC Darkside, and Dartmouth Pain Train versus Central Florida Dogs of War.
All of those games start tomorrow morning at 8:30 Central Time. We look forward to seeing you there. Until then, I am Jonas Cole.
I'm Jimmy Leppert.
I'm Coit Stevenson.
And I'm Pat Kimutis.
This has been Saturday here at D1 Nationals in Madison, Wisconsin. For Sky Magazine, presented by Spin Ultimate, thanks for tuning in.